I could not help feeling that they were evil things. Mountains of madness whose farther slope looked out over some accursed ultimate abyss.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in. You see the lights are off. We're out here in this creepy darkness. That's Matt behind the camera. I'm Ben, as always. Most importantly, you're here, and that makes it stuff they don't want you to know. Before we get started today, we want to give a huge thank you to everybody who has subscribed, checked out our videos, told their friends about them, or shared them, because we just hit 300,000 subscribers. That's not really a big deal to a lot of people, sure, but it's a big deal to us, and we really appreciate it. Matt is probably going to edit all the other stuff I would have said, so I'll just leave it at thank you. Thank you very much. This week, Matt and I are visiting a location that might be familiar to some of our longtime listeners. We're going to Antarctica. We've touched on Antarctica in a couple of earlier episodes. We did Operation High Jump, which might pop up on the screen here sometime. We've also looked at Nazis and hollow earth theories, and there's some very interesting stories there. But this week, we want to look at the continent overall. It's an amazing, desolate place, and for 35 million years, it's been covered in ice. It is the most inhospitable place on the planet. It's the 5th largest continent, makes it about twice the size of Australia. It is also the windiest continent with the highest average elevation. It holds 70% of the world's fresh water, 90% of the freshwater ice. And when you see the place, it's not really a surprise because it's covered by these two gigantic ice sheets that can be almost 3 miles thick in some places. So we asked ourselves, if all that ice melts, what will we find underneath? Here are 4 examples. 1, we will find fossils. That's a pretty easy guess. Right now we know that dinosaurs did exist during the Cretaceous period when Antarctica was a lot more like the Pacific Northwest than this horrible ice desert. We know this because we've seen evidence of other dinosaur fossils in the islands around Antarctica. However, getting through that ice to find remains of flora and fauna from millions and millions and millions of years ago is a tall order. But we do know that if the ice disappears, what we will most likely find will be entirely new species, stuff that human beings, at least according to the official stories, have never seen before. Unknown life forms from millions of years in the past. Number 2, geothermal energy. In recent years, scientists have argued that some of the ice dissipation they see in Antarctica, especially on the western shelf, may have been attributed to geothermal energy rather than climate change. And what this means is that if the ice disappeared in Antarctica, we might be able to found new civilizations using that geothermal energy as the primary power source. This might sound weird, but let's remember that over 70% of Iceland's power today comes from geothermal energy. Number 3, and this one is just more interesting than anything else. The world's largest telescope is in Antarctica, and it's pointing down. It's a mega detector called, in a burst of creativity, the Ice Cube. It's 8,000 feet beneath the Arctic ice, and at 1 cubic kilometer, it's bigger than most buildings combined. The Empire State Building, the Sears Tower, or I guess that's the Willis Tower now, and Shanghai's World Financial Center combined. 4, the last thing on our list, and by far one of the most exciting if you ask me. Remember how we mentioned these ancient, never before seen fossils? Well, it is possible that we will run into some sort of descendant of theirs, living things far, far beneath the ice, because the ice that covers Antarctica doesn't just cover ground. It also covers around 200 lakes, the largest of which is known as Lake Vostok. Scientists have drilled down to this lake, and it's like 2.5 miles of ice below, and they found hundreds of life forms, not just bacteria, not just eukaryotic organisms, but also multicellular organisms. This led one scientist to famously say, based on the kind of organisms we're seeing, there might be larger things down there too, fish, or who knows. That statement, by the way, was quickly retracted, but it's a good question. Who knows what we'll find? At this point, we've made some guesses. We've checked one lake, the largest, but there are 199 other lakes, and we don't know what they'll hold. So what do you think would happen when the ice melts? What will we find? Will there be any more surprises? Will there be some eldritch Lovecraftian ruined civilization, a dormant prehistoric disease that was hibernating in the ice until, like the dwarves in Lord of the Rings, we dug too deep? We're going to take a look at that and more in our audio podcast. Join us as we look at the fringe science, the folklore, the fact, the fiction, and the future of Antarctica. And if you have any ideas for stuff we should cover in the future, let us know on Facebook and Twitter. You can write to us directly. We are conspiracy@howstuffworks.com.